This is a national show. We cover every single team, and we do our best to cover every single team and to spread the love, so to speak. But inevitably, regrettably, there are some things that fall through the cracks. And so today's show, I don't want to say it's like a cleanup show, but it's making good on some conversations that we probably should have had earlier that we're finally having now, and a lot of fan bases that have been very angry at us for a very long time for not acknowledging them. You guys are getting your just due today.
We're not catching up with everybody, but we are catching up with some of you. And we've had these conversations, and then we realize, hey, we talked about that on the show because we have a whole nother cadre of conversations that don't make it to the public forum. It's time to bring these ones up above the fold, share them with everybody else, and, right in time for the holidays. Gifts for everybody.
So Chargers fans, Jags fans, unfortunately, Ravens fans, and Bucs fans, you guys are up today. We'll start that on the other side of the intro. Neil, roll it. Welcome to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett Coleman. That's EJ Snyder. And for the first time in, I think, literally months, we're talking Chargers football today. Before we get to it, EJ, my friend, how are you?
I'm good. People keep asking me if I'm ready for Christmas. I keep telling them no, it's just a few days beforehand. Yes, I know this, but I'm totally cool with all that. So I'm kind of cruising through the holiday season and ready to, deliver some of these gifts to fan bases that we haven't necessarily talked about a whole bunch or about this particular facet of their team, which we find fascinating. And that was kind of the only stipulation for this issue is like, hey, we've got some things we really want to talk about. When should we do it? And it was like, this week. Yep, that's good. Let's do it.
It might sound kind of egregious because at this point, almost unquestionably, the top three MVP candidates this season are going to be Matthew Stafford and then both Drake and Josh, whatever order you want to put them in. But for me, I do believe that Justin Herbert at least deserves to be in the conversation. Again, I understand that sounds egregious on the surface. If you're looking at run-of-the-mill passing statistics, if you're looking at points per game, if you're looking at EPA per play, there is no universe where Herbert should be considered as a true MVP candidate. And yet, if you just watch Chargers games, it sinks in pretty quickly that this team would be, I don't want to say non-functional, but non-functional adjacent without Justin Herbert on the field. This offense almost entirely relies on him being himself to function, not unlike a division mate in Kansas City, which we saw what that looked like post Mahomes injury. Not good. And if you're looking at the circumstances at which Justin Herbert is executing and keeping his offense afloat, there are no other MVP candidates that, to me, have to deal with that much adversity. We're looking at since week 7, post Joe Alt injury, when they've just consistently been shuffling around offensive linemen, a 51.3% pressure rate allowed per our friends over at Sumer Brain. Anything over like 35 is bad. 51% is apocalyptically bad. That is literally the worst in the entire NFL. 175 pressures allowed, only 33 sacks. 33 sacks is a lot, but again, 51% pressure rate, 175 pressures, that's a miracle as far as I'm concerned. They only have the 12th worst pressure to sack ratio, which is almost entirely because of Herbert. They are 30th in yards before contact per attempt rushing at 0.6. Only Cleveland and Vegas are worse than that, and just barely. So again, run game has had its struggles, especially when Amari Hampton was injured. Pass protection is non-existent. He's had to work with a bunch of young weapons around him who, by the way, have pulled their weight. But again, a lot of young weapons. And if you're looking at how this team has still won 7 out of 8 games, including against some pretty good teams, it's basically Justin Herbert keeping the offense alive, darn near single-handedly. He gets them into field goal range. They have one of the best kickers in the NFL who consistently caps off those drives and rewards them with points, which is why they have the 3rd highest scoring drive percentage since week 7, which makes no sense for how bad their offensive line is. And then at the same time, you have a defense that's so good that, when the Chargers are scoring at like a 45% clip as far as, amount of their possessions that score, if your defense is then holding people to low to mid 30s, yeah, you are going to win 7 out of your 8 games here, but the only reason why their scoring drive percentage is that high is because they have an elite of the elite quarterback. They have an elite of the elite kicker, and it's been just enough to make this a not powerhouse, but damn good football team. So, yeah, Justin Herbert's not going to win MVP, but if you watch Chargers games, you realize that without him, they would be pretty much fucked.
Yeah, I don't think he belongs in the MVP conversation, but he is playing really great football. Now, it is interesting, great football because of all the things you mentioned. And I want to say this is not a counting stats discussion. We tend to try and go deeper than those. Sometimes it's surface material that we'll throw in as background, but we don't lean on them. Because if you look at many of the counting stats, Herbert is mid-pack at best. If you look at him play the game, if you're talking about watching the tape every week, there are 2 to 3 throws a week from Herbert that are like, again, a lot of people aren't seeing them if they're not Chargers fans. They are elite throws. It's really, really striking. So throwing the ball is one part of being a quarterback, but it's not the only part. And Herbert has improved on almost all those other sort of hidden parts. One of the most important, quote unquote, hidden stats for him is turnover-worthy play percentage, because he has a ton of attempts. He's throwing the ball a lot. So Herbert has the 31st smallest turnover-worthy play percentage in football. He's right down there with Josh Allen, who has learned how to protect the ball incredibly well. And it's funny because, again, if you go back to those counting stats, it's in sharp contrast to the counting stats of interceptions, where he's tied for the 4th most. And if you're trying to reconcile those two things in your brain, it's almost the perfect argument as why we're talking about Justin Herbert playing great football. On the surface, it looks like, man, he's thrown a middling amount of touchdowns, 25. He's thrown the 4th most interceptions in the league. What are you talking about? And then you look at his turnover-worthy play percentage. You look at his pressure to sack percentage. It's 12th highest, but in terms of he's got the 3rd most sacks taken in the league, which means to me, he's mitigating a large percentage of those just through running for his life.
It is a miracle that they have only been okay. Like, that to me is a Herculean effort to just be okay. And also, to your point, the turnover-worthy play rate not matching up with interceptions thrown. It's like, yeah, because a lot of the interceptions that Justin Herbert's thrown haven't been Justin Herbert's fault, which is part of the reason why like pure INT count oftentimes isn't really a great stat to evaluate quarterback play, because there can be deflections off a receiver's hands that just, for whatever reason, can't bring it in. Sometimes it bounces off a helmet. Like, sometimes if you're playing against the Chicago Bears for whatever reason, sometimes you catch a touchdown and the DB just takes it out of your hand. Like, interceptions happen all the time. They're not the quarterback's fault. For whatever reason, they happen a lot to Justin Herbert. But he has been playing out of his gourd this year. He really has. And it's why, I think if the Colts lose tonight, by the way, we're recording this literally at the start of Monday Night Football. If the Colts lose tonight, I think the Chargers clinch, which to me should scare the rest of the AFC, because the formula that tends to work really well in the postseason is great defense, nails kicker, elite quarterback. Because then you're just trying to win on efficiency here, and this team can out-efficiency almost anybody. Now, Herbert's going to take a pounding while he does it, but generally speaking, he's going to do it. So, again, letting this team in, that should frighten everybody, including the team in their own division in Denver.
Yeah, it absolutely should. And you talk about taking pounding. He has absolutely done that. Again, 3rd most sacks taken in the league, but he is as dangerous, more dangerous than he has ever been running the football. He's 2nd in total QB rush yards behind only Josh Allen, and he has a higher yards per carry than Josh Allen does. He's 2nd in total explosive runs by a quarterback. Again, Allen has 16, Herbert has 15. And when he takes off, and Harbaugh has definitely given him license to do it, he is not sort of jogging and looking for the ability to hit a slide. He is sprinting. He is damn fast. I remember him running at the combine that year, and everybody else was talking about other quarterback prospects. And I was like, he's a really good athlete. And that showed up on his tape, but that portion of his game has been unlocked. He's picked with the 4th most first downs by rushing by any quarterback this year, behind Allen, Hurts, and Lawrence are the only 3 ahead of him. That has been a major piece of just making it work behind this. I don't even want to call it a makeshift offensive line. At one point, they were playing their 6th offensive tackle Spoiler alert, nobody has 6 offensive tackles on their roster. And that was early on in the season. So he is just making it work in whichever way he can. If that means running and taking a hit, he's doing it. If that means running and throwing some crazy off-platform 30-yard dime to somebody in coverage that hits him in the numbers, he's doing that. He's throwing it away when he needs to. Again, his turnover-worthy play percentage is really low. So if you add up all these sort of, I don't want to say hidden, but less popular stats, he's doing a hell of a job. The results are not necessarily matching up to the process, but his process has improved in almost every aspect, and it is showing up on the field if you watch the tape. It's not necessarily showing up in counting stats and results. The team is winning, and they absolutely would not be. I know that's the definition of MVP, but it's not who gets the votes.
We will get right back to the show in just a second, I promise. But first, we're coming up on the holiday season pretty quick here, and the best possible gift you could ever give to yourself is making sure you are healthy. That means having consistent annual checkups, making sure that anything that doesn't look normal or feel normal gets checked out, having a better nutritional regimen as well. And even though I myself already have a doctor that I really like, I have to assume that some of you listening and watching to this right now maybe don't have a doctor already. And if you happen to count yourself among that group, today's sponsor, ZocDoc, might be able to help you with that. On ZocDoc, you can find and book doctors in your area that can handle whatever it is that's been bothering you in the back of your mind. Maybe you haven't been to the dentist in a while. Maybe you're way overdue for a physical. Maybe you have a spot on your skin that you really should have gotten someone to look at months ago. Whatever you need, you can find on ZocDoc. And fast as well. If you need something, 24 to 48 hours out because it's a little bit more of a pressing issue, odds are you can probably find something in your area that quickly. Again, if I didn't already have a doctor that I happen to like a lot, ZocDoc is what I would use to find my new one. So if you want to check it out for yourself and see what they have to offer, go to ZocDoc.com/bootleg. That is ZocDoc.com/bootleg. Again, ZocDoc.com/bootleg. There is another quarterback, by the way, where not only is it showing up on tape, but it's also showing up in the counting stats. It's one of the few times where the counting stats and the tape agree, I would say, and that's Trevor Lawrence. He has played out of his mind for, more than a month at this point, probably 5 weeks, 6 weeks maybe in a row. Last time I checked in this little stretch run, he's like 14 touchdowns, no picks, passer rating through the roof. Like he's just been incredible. And really it started not the week they got Jacoby Myers, the week after they got Jacoby Myers. So week 11 was when this kind of, whole rocket ship took off. And I do want to say, right, like I have been incredibly critical of not just Trevor Lawrence, but the Jaguars, first half of the season. I looked at a lot of the non-counting stats. If you're looking at, the advanced stats, whether it's efficiency per play, efficiency per drive, especially, this was a team that was one off the mark for the franchise record in turnovers forced in their first 6 games. And they needed all of those turnovers to get better field position and to give them extra possessions because this offense was really, really inefficient. And that's what I called out in the first half of the season. I said, Trevor needs to be more accurate. The receivers need to stop dropping passes because this team has been high in drops as long as I can remember. The screen game was really, really bad. And I said that they need to stop trying to make it work. Like fetch is not going to happen. And neither is the Jaguars screen game this year. I said that they had a really good run game and they needed to lean into it more. This was a low run percentage team at the time. They tried to augment it with the screen game. And there was a lot of things about this Jags team that I was incredibly critical about. And Jags fans were very upset at me because they had a very good record at the time. And then they lost 3 out of 4. They collapsed against the Texans. They got their doors blown off by the Rams and the Seahawks. And I was like, something's got to change here. Like everything that I had talked about that I was negative about all came home to roost over a month period. And then they got Jacoby Myers. And again, not in week 10, but starting in week 11 after Jacoby had been there for a week. This has been just an entirely different team. And I am a firm believer that the praise needs to be as loud as the criticism, or else you don't have weight with your criticism. If all you can do is throw criticism, but then you don't acknowledge when things get better, you don't highlight when things get better, you don't praise development, then what's your word worth? So this is my soapbox to issue as much praise as the criticism I was giving out, because a lot of what I said I didn't like about this team in the first half has completely flipped upside down. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of numbers here, but I'm going to weave them together into a story so you understand what I'm talking about. Again, I talked about how I didn't like their screen game in the first half of the year. Since week 11, they have the 6th highest run rate in the NFL. So they have gone from being not run heavy at all to very run heavy. And at the same time, their screen rate has dropped from almost 17%, which was the 4th highest, all the way down to 9% since then, which was 22nd. So they basically took all of their screens that weren't working and just made them carries, which is what I said that they should have been doing the entire time. Now, their efficiency on a run-by-run basis has tanked, but it's more about commitment than just, again, raw counting stats here. They have gone up to 7th as far as frequency of using under center with Trevor. They've taken him, well, I mean, they were fairly frequent under center before, but they've leaned even more into it since the bye week. Their passer rating from under center is 110. That is top 10 in the NFL. And they have the 11th most under center play action pass attempts in the NFL since they got Jacoby Myers, which is great. That's what I love. I love when Trevor's under center. I love when he's throwing it down the field because he has shown himself to be very good at that. Now, because they cut out the screen game, they leaned more into under center. They leaned more into under center play action. Trevor's average depth of target has gone from 8.7 up to 10.6. He is attacking down the field more. And part of the reason why that's worked better is because he now has a receiver that he can rely on. This Jags receiving core is still, since week 11, 30th in drops. Or I guess third most drops is the best way to put that. They still drop the ball a lot. But he has Jacoby Myers, who doesn't drop the ball. And he kind of makes up for it, makes up for the drops of the other receivers with his just pure playmaking ability. He has the 6th most contested catches since he became a Jag in the NFL with a whopping 85% contested catch rate. By the way, that's insanity. A good contested catch, not even good, a great contested catch rate is 50-50. Like, he's one of the best in the NFL since the start of last season at 60%. That's way up there. 85% is absolutely bonkers. So, again, he has kind of single-handedly elevated this receiving core and just given Trevor somebody that he can rely on to catch the ball in a gotta-have-it down. He's also a great blocker. If you're looking, I got the time code here. Second quarter, 6:03 left, 2nd and 11 versus Denver. He and Parker Washington, they ran a pin and pull to their side. Jacoby got a 2-for-1, sprung ETN to the edge, set himself up in the low red zone. Like, that's the kind of physical presence he brings as a run blocker. Again, as a receiver over the middle. I think he has like one drop since he became a Jag. Like, just having that reliable outlet has completely transformed this offense. And also, at the same time, like, here's the biggest point of all, Trevor has played better. Like, if we're looking at off-target incompletions, which is something that I've hammered about really for the last few years for Trevor, inconsistency in ball placement. A lot of the drops were because he was giving receivers bad balls. He has gotten so much more accurate since week 11. In fact, he has the 7th fewest off-target incompletions over that last 6-game stretch compared to him being, I think he wasn't highest. I want to say he was like 3rd most off-target incompletions in the first half of the season. So he has played a lot better. He seems to be a lot more comfortable the more they go under center, which, by the way, not normal. That's a great sign for him to be more comfortable under center and to be more comfortable throwing the ball down the field. So he's more accurate. Jacoby's like an actual real threat for him. They cut out all the screen bullshit. They ran the ball more. And the defense is also playing better too, which helps as well. They kind of got gashed a little bit in the middle of the season. They were dealing with some injuries here. But all that to say, I know that was a long string of numbers to go through. Everything that I didn't like about this team has gotten better. And everything that I did like about this team has remained the same. What that translates to is the best team in the AFC South. They're probably going to win the division. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. And if they end up as the 3 seed, they still have an outside shot at the 1 seed. As my light turns off, sorry about that. They still have an outside shot at the 1 seed. Most likely they're going to be the 3 seed. We're looking at a scenario where they're hosting Houston again in the wild card round. part 3 here for a series this year that has been wacky at best. And I got to say, as a Texans fan, Houston going on the road to this Jacksonville team, this team that we've seen play for the last 6 weeks or so, I don't think the Texans win that game. Not with Trevor playing like this, not with Liam coaching like this, not with Jacoby Myers playing like this, not with the defense playing like this. Like, this is a top 3 team in the conference. And, I'm happy for Jags fans. You guys can dunk on me all you want for me being cheeky in the first half of the season, but I'm not stupid. I have eyes. I can see that this team has gotten better, and they're one of the 3 best in the conference. So as far as I'm concerned, they got as good a shot as anybody to go on a real deep playoff run here in year 1 of Liam Cohen.
Yeah, this offense has ascended under Liam Cohen. And for everything everyone is saying about Ben Johnson bringing the Bears offense back from the dead, the exact same things can be said about Liam in year 1 in Jacksonville. Similar trajectory, too. As I started to sit down and look at this, I thought, eerily similar between Chicago and Jacksonville in the early part of the season. Some different things, but a lot of the same tendencies. They look clunky on offense as both coaches got their rosters up to speed, what they wanted done, and specifically how they wanted that to happen. And neither team got it right away. In Chicago, it was tons of pre-snap penalties, sloppiness on execution of base concepts, especially the inside run game. In Jacksonville, the run game came out of the gate pretty hot, but the passing game shot itself in the foot week after week. BTJ looked lost and regressed. We certainly talked about that. Trevor looked like the game and the verbiage was all just too much and too fast for him. He'd get late in the snap count. He wouldn't be able to assess. And then you'd see the post-snap execution suffer. Sometimes it was amazing, and you'd say, aha, that's it. That's what it's supposed to look like. But then the very next play would be wildly inconsistent misses, whether it was miscommunication with the receiver or a drop or just a bad throw. And that derailed drives more often than not. Strangely enough, a lot of their statistics from the first half of the season and the second half of the season are eerily similar. The Jags early in the year and the Jags late in the year. I was expecting these huge jumps given how well their offense is playing right now. There's not. It's when those things happened. It's the ability to string those things together. And even when that was the case, both with Ben and with Liam, there were times where you could see it and you're like, aha. And it was about seeing it for their quarterbacks, especially consistently. And Trevor wasn't seeing consistently early. Neither was Caleb. And they both didn't play great on offense because of it. The targets, we already talked about the targets in Jacksonville. They're not helping. Lots of drops. The routes weren't particularly clean. They weren't winning in a way that was basically making this pass offense easier. Process finally caught up for Liam and for Trevor. Things lined up, and now the results, again, even though the percentages are not all that different, the hit rate is, and we're finally seeing process and results match up. Now, the shift started to take hold right when they were in the middle of that losing streak. I know that sounds crazy, but there was progress from a pre-snap process, from an operation process. Some of that stuff started to clean up. Again, the results weren't there, so everybody said, oh, it's all still broken. But the shift started before Jacoby got there. And once Jacoby got there, he was basically just like high octane in the gas. He supercharged the whole operation because this offense needed a reliable target in the middle of the field at middle distance who could win. And they haven't had it, and Jacoby is exactly that. And all the stats that you brought up point to that. He is that, and he is one of the very best versions of that in the NFL. It's a fairly small niche, but he's so good at it. And to me, it's really reminiscent of what Mike Mack did in Seattle with the defense in year 1. Through the first 5 or 6 weeks, again, it was good, but not great. Fits and starts, and Mike really knew that he didn't have the player he needed in the middle. So they shipped off a couple of middle linebackers. They went and got Ernest Jones, and as soon as Ernest Jones got to the middle of Hawks defense, from then on, it's been a different unit. And I think Liam kind of did the same thing. He spent the first half of the season going, man, we don't have this one thing, and I need this one thing for a lot of what I'm doing. Can we get that guy? Jacoby was available. They got him. First time on the field was in week 10, and then it all started to click. They were close, but all the little things were killing them. Those all got cleaned up through the middle of the season, and now they look like an absolute powerhouse. So again, go into Sumer Brain. If we're talking about weeks 1 through 9, weeks 10 to 16, in the first 9 weeks, 9 passing touchdowns, 10 to 16, 17 passing touchdowns. Week 1 through 9.
Thanks, Jets.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Yep. Always helps. 6 interceptions in the first part of the season, only 5 in the last 6 weeks. Sacks taken are also down. And you talked about Trevor. I'm just going to say, this is a very short counting stats section. In the last 5 weeks, I'm just going to go yards and touchdowns. Starting in week 12, 285 and 3, 254 and 2, 260 and 2, 381 and 6 in week 15, 299 and 4 this past week. So that means over the last month, he's thrown 14 touchdowns, no picks. And one of the best stats, I think, that sort of crystallizes all the things that occurred and the level he's playing at right now is against the Broncos, one of the best defenses in the league. Lawrence absolutely shredded the blitz. He got blitzed on 18 dropbacks. He was 10 of 15 for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns in those situations. He was like, bring it at me. I got you, against one of the best defenses out there right now. This is the Trevor Lawrence we were all promised. Coaching matters. Liam unlocked him, and that should scare the rest of the AFC very deeply, because if this is here to stay, and it does look sustainable right now, it's a completely different landscape in that conference with him playing at this level. It's better than almost everybody else. He is at the level of, you said, the formula, right? You got to have a quarterback that's playing well when you get to the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence is playing as well as anybody right now. The defense has been good. It's been stalwart all year. The pass rush has been pretty good. The turnovers are great. Again, the running game was solid, fits and starts. They've shifted it to be more right-sized for their offense. And Trevor has taken an absolute moonshot over the last month.
I look at it. There's an old saying, to get by in life, you can either be ugly and nice, or you can be hot and mean. You can't be ugly and mean. This was an offense where you can either have inaccuracy at the quarterback position, but every receiver has glue for hands, or you can have receivers that drop a lot, but the quarterback is nails and gives them the most catchable possible ball. You can't have both. You can't have bad ball placement and bad hands. They fixed the bad hands. Trevor fixed the bad ball placement. Again, they still have the third highest drop percentage since week 11, but at least somebody can catch the ball. But they just don't have the compounding issues on top of each other anymore of nobody can catch and Trevor missing throws. Trevor's been great, and at least one guy can catch. So it's a small thing, but it's a big result. And that's really what moved the needle here. And I mean, shit, they can still clean up a lot of stuff and get even better. Again, if they just clean up the drops even more and be like average instead of, again, bottom 3 in the NFL. If they clean up the penalties, which this team's been penalized as much or more than anybody else other than, I think, Denver the entire season. Like, they still haven't hit their ceiling. So to me, if I was a Jags fan, I'd be pumped for the playoffs. I do think they have a really good shot of going on a run here. And, looking at the other top seeds in the AFC, I think right now I would probably take them over New England. Obviously, I would take them over Denver. They just beat Denver handily. I would take them over Houston for sure. I'd probably take them over Buffalo. That one honestly would be the tightest game, but I still think I would favor them over Buffalo. And who else is there? Like, hell, you could argue that they're the best team in the AFC when all's said and done. So I think Jags fans are going to have a very nice January. Dare I say, a decent February. And, the fact that Liam Cohen's doing this in his first year as head coach, that's pretty damn impressive, I'll tell you that much.
So what I'm hearing is that you're sucking up to Jags fans by calling them hot and nice.
When I see Halle Berry in front of me, I'm going to say it. Just say it.
You do have eyes. You mentioned that earlier.
Speaking of hot and nice, by the way, I have our bootleg barrel pick here. All 118 proof of it. And we're doing shot of the week. I decided to save myself and not do a shot of that. I have the regular classic Woodinville, but I have been sipping on the barrel pick throughout the show. And something I've noticed is when going from the barrel pick to basically any other bourbon, I don't taste a thing. So shot of the week's going to be nice and easy for me. What do you have, EJ?
I just have a straightforward bourbon bottled in bond. Again, drinking 118 is great when you want a lot of depth in your bourbon. You want a lot of flavor. You want what I call athletic drinking, and the bootleg barrel pick certainly figures into that category, as it does for other folks that I've shared it with. Sometimes in the middle of an hour-long show, I just want a good, solid bourbon, so that's what I've got. 90 proof, easy, light work at this point.
Especially when we didn't eat lunch, or at least I didn't eat lunch, so I'm playing with fire here. Our Woodinville Shot of the Week winner, as you might have guessed, Jalen Petre, annihilating Rashee Rice, one of two plays that Rashee was nominated for last week, basically being the ultimate symbol of Chiefs Kingdom this week with, losing your starting quarterback, your team moving, your backup quarterback also tearing his ACL. They're going to be rooting for like Chris Oladokun on Christmas Day on Amazon. I got to check in with our buddy Sam, who's on the Amazon broadcast, and see how he's holding up, because this is not going to be a good football game. So been a little bit of a rough week in Kansas City, Missouri. This is as much of a celebration shot as a pity shot for you folks. But to you, Rashee, for handling that contact like a champ and somehow not dying, because Jalen Petre knocked the shit out of him.
Yeah, that was a very solid hit. But Chiefs fans taking hits over the last month for sure, and doesn't look like it's going to get a whole lot better with the news announced today.
Again, that goes down like nothing after doing a 118, man. Like I don't even need a chaser. It's just that is the chaser to me.
I would not recommend using that as a chaser.
This week's nominees, by the way, Darnell Washington, nominated, I want to say, for like the third or fourth time this season.
It feels
every
like
time
third
he
time
gets the ball,
sure.
he just kills people, man.
Yeah. This was the second shot in this game. We couldn't use the first one because DJ Reed got shaken up, but DJ Reed, unfortunately for him, came back into the game, which is very good, but faced Darnell again after he stiff-armed the crap out of the defender in front of DJ Reed. And DJ Reed was like, really? I got to do this again, and got absolutely just road bumped for the second time in the game.
It was like a pack of lions tackling a water buffalo. It was every time he gets the ball, again, as a 315-pound tight end, his words, not mine. It's always cinema. So, again, Darnell Washington nominated for the nth time this season. Jesse Bates, first time he's appeared on the nominees list this season. This is one that EJ saw while watching the game live, and apparently nobody tweeted about it, so EJ wanted to highlight it. This was Jesse Bates not having Trey McBride as his receiver. As best I could tell from the coverage, it was either quarters or quarter half. And to me, it looked like Bates was supposed to be the inside bracket on the one going vertical. He saw that McBride was doing like a delay release fade down the boundary with the linebacker. And of course, it's Trey McBride, so he's going to win. And to me, it looked like Jesse abandoned his assignment because he saw his linebacker was losing, didn't even look at the quarterback. He just immediately broke to the pylon because he's like, well, of course the ball's going there. Took like a perfect 90-degree angle, met him at the ball, broke it up. Of course, gave him a little something after. But that to me was one of the plays of the week, where a safety who's not even responsible for Trey McBride saw that this was going to be a touchdown, left his assignment, and went and made a play.
Yeah, and the backstory on this one's great because McBride was John at Jesse Bates a couple of plays before this, and Jesse Bates was like, excuse me, do you know who you're talking to? Let me show you. And for the next 3 receptions or attempted receptions by McBride, Jesse Bates owned him. He stuffed him into a locker. This was just one of them. And again, a game not a ton of people are watching. It's Falcons-Cardinals late in the season. I get it. But this is, to me, the essence of Shot of the Week. Guys out there competing regardless of who's watching. And Jesse Bates had an up and down season. He's had some impact plays. He's also had some very bad games, but he is a professional. He is prideful. And when he wants to turn it on, it was vintage Jesse Bates to me.
Nominee number 3, Kayvon Chason. Boy, big week for Jags fans to have Kayvon Chason show up here too. Jags legend, many are saying, made the hustle play of the week with I'll call it a game-winning forced fumble for the Patriots in the Ravens game. Zay Flowers got the ball and unfortunately did the Zay Flowers thing where he fumbles it in a key spot in the second half. But Chase on running him down from behind, doing like a perfect chop at the ball. Great play, winning play. Like that's how teams, consistently go on runs is you make high leverage plays and high leverage moments. K'Lavon Chaisson did that. And then final nominee, I should say, of the week. Chargers special teams, kind of a combo shot between Justin Eboigbe and Hassan Haskins on a kickoff that I'm not even sure people who were watching the game actually watched, because there was like 10 seconds left in the half. I'm sure a lot of people went go to the bathroom, get some drinks, but it was an absolutely brutal shot. Again, if you want to see videos of all of these hits, legal hits, I should remind you, we have those over on our poll. It's a public poll over on the Patreon page. You don't have to be a patron to vote on it, though we would appreciate if you did become a patron. That has a video with every single nominee. Watch those down, vote on your favorite. We'll drink to it next week. But yeah, Justin Eboigbe and Hassan Haskins getting mentions on Bootleg. How about that?
It was an absolute car wreck again. I will have 7 or 8 games up on the early slate every week, and that Chargers game was up in the corner of my main screen. And again, 12 seconds to halftime, you're kind of focusing on the other games. Out of the corner of my eye, I see this car wreck occur. And I just made a quick note. I was like, that's going on shot of the week. Again, nobody's paying attention to that kickoff. Probably didn't make a huge difference in the game, but it was a monster shot on special teams.
Before we get to extended Ravens talk, by the way, and that Zay Flowers fumble and all of the ramifications of that Zay Flowers fumble, not just this season, but potentially next season and beyond, do want to give a quick little update on our Underdog Pick'em contest. Last week's winners, the winner, I should say, the top 10, we'll throw those on screen right now. Of course, if you win in our weekly contest, you get a bootleg mini helmet, you get $500 in Underdog credit, we send you a shirt as well. We do one of these every single week. But also, you can even start playing right now. We have a running tally for the season-long pickup contest. So if you want to jump into that now, it's not too late. As long as you do, between now and Super Bowl, just 120 individual player picks. So not 120 entries. Each entry can have 5, 6 guys on it. So it doesn't actually take that long to get through 120 player picks. And even then, you don't have to put a lot of money on it. Just whatever you feel comfortable with. But as many entries as you want to do, as many player picks as you want to do. If you get to 120 by the Super Bowl, because this is a 12-week contest, usually it's like 10 a week. If you get to 120, you get eligible for the season-long Pick'em winner, which top prize for that is a full-size bootleg helmet. You get $3,000 in Underdog credit. We send you our last bootleg barrel pick. You can't even buy these anymore because we sold out in 17 hours. And then everybody in the top 10. We have kind of escalating prizes for everybody in the top 10. So we'll throw the top 10 for season long on there right now. You can see if you're in striking distance, but even if you're not, you can get started today and still get in on this and try to win this late. You can find the link to that to join or to track your progress down in the description below and the pinned comment below. And if you're new to Underdog, promo code BOOTLEG, by the way, gets you a whole bunch of bonus credit to use on the site. So thank you once again to Underdog for helping to put this on. Good luck to everybody who has been playing and who will be playing. And with that, EJ, let's talk about the Ravens. And more specifically, everything that has gone wrong in Baltimore this year. It's a pretty long list, to say the least.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of the things that have gone wrong with the Ravens. Just, it feels like a week ago, maybe it was 2 at this point, but things feel like they've taken not necessarily a turn, but they've stayed the same, and that's bad enough at this particular point in the season. And the Ravens feel to me like they need a reset. And I know that seems extreme, but we're going to go through it. John Harbaugh has been there literally forever, one of the longest tenured coaches in the NFL. But this Baltimore team, watching them yesterday against the Patriots, it's a shell of its former self. What has worked for decades at this point, literal decades, isn't working anymore. And it's hard because just 1 year ago, this team was playing top-level football in the NFL. They were number 1 to 4, depending on, they were in the top 4 in offense in the NFL, regardless of the statistic you looked at. The defense was playing at an extremely high level. We're like, shoo, I'm so glad that Zach Orr got that little hiccup of 6 weeks out of his system. And then he did it again this year. It's just a very strange team. And looking at this team yesterday, they looked kind of desperate. And the Ravens haven't looked desperate a lot in John Harbaugh's tenure. And, going back to the beginning, Harbaugh, and it started with Ozzie and then Eric DeCosta, have kept this team rolling for almost 20 years. Harbaugh started in 2008. He won the Super Bowl in 2012. Again, Newsom held the GM role for the first 10 seasons of Harbaugh's tenure until 2018. And then he handed the reins over to his handpicked successor, Eric Costa, and the Ravens way, which we talk about every year in draft season. Like, of course the Ravens picked that guy. They were so good at picking very low in the round and getting quality players in every round that at the end of every year we were left saying, of course they got that guy. Of course they got that guy. And that way kept this team, along with great coaching that took players from the 4th and 5th round and made them into consistent contributors. They never really needed to reload. They just kind of reshuffled and kept going. So since Lamar's arrival, this team's won 4 out of 7 division titles, 18, 19, 23, and 24. But they've only played in 7 total postseason games, never advancing past the divisional round. That's the stat you hear every playoffs. That's Hall of Very Good territory, and that makes it difficult to kind of upset the apple cart and say we need wholesale change when you've had consistent success that a lot of teams would kill for. But if you're talking to Ravens fans, they don't want consistent success. That's their division rival over in Pittsburgh. They want to win it all again. They've done it a couple of times, and they want to feel like they're back on top of the mountain.
Hold on. My cat is climbing
I see that.
on the whiskey shelves. So I apologize, but the folks at home might want to see this. So he's a cat. He likes small, dangly things. And we went to my wife's office Christmas party, and they did an ornament exchange. And the ornament, this is going to be much more impactful for the people watching the YouTube version than the audio version. This is the ornament that my wife picked up from the ornament exchange. And my cat decided that he wanted to go play with it. So,
well,
apologies, folks. Anyway.
Your cat has very particular tastes.
Yeah, I didn't know that about him.
Back to the, now you do. Back to the Hall of Very Good territory. A lot of people like to compare Harbaugh and Andy Reid and his tenure in Philadelphia. And that's fair. Throw a little graph up on screen in terms of number of seasons, playoff games they've been to, the record in those playoff games, conference championship games, and Super Bowl appearances. Again, if you're looking at Harbaugh's overall since he started in Baltimore, it's pretty favorable. If you're looking at just the last, say, 8 years, it's fallen off. And so it's a fair comparison, but even Reid had to move on. If you remember, if you're old enough to remember at this point, Andy Reid at the end of his tenure in Philadelphia, there was a lot of sourness with Philadelphia fans. We're never going to get to the top of the mountain. We're not going to win one. We need to move on, despite all the success. And he did have a fair level of success with the Eagles. But since he's moved on, both the Eagles and Andy Reid have had more success. So is it time for Harbaugh and the Ravens? It's a difficult thing to say. Sometimes it's just time, and it might be time for Harbaugh. The sort of symptoms of that are this team looks disjointed, and I'm not sure that Harbaugh has answers. Sometimes you just get to be the same voice, and that's consistent, but over time, people tune you out, and I'm not sure that's what's happened. But this team doesn't look the same. It's had, again, those 2 very serious defensive lapses for the first 5 or 6 games of the year over the last 2 years. And those first half season swoons have put them behind the 8 ball and chasing in both seasons. Todd Monken was absolutely the answer when he arrived on offense. He was the missing piece when he took over for Greg Roman. In 2023, they were 4th in the NFL in points per game, and they were 19th in third down conversions. Then, in his second year in 24, they climbed up to 3rd in points per game, and in third down conversions, they went all the way up to 5th. This was an incredibly efficient killing machine of an offense. This year, they're all the way down to 14th in points, and their third down conversions are 23rd. That is a serious drop from 5th, and it is a reason they can't sustain drives, and that's a reason they're struggling. And when you look at Lamar, I have to remind myself all the time, he's only 28, but he's in his 8th season. Again, he came out early and young. He's missed significant time in 3 of the last 5 seasons. 21, it was an ankle. 22, it was a PCL sprain. This year, he's missed 3 full games with a hamstring, plus he's been pulled from 2 others. So you're talking about 5 games where he was not fully available. Look, when Lamar is healthy and on, if you have listened to this podcast, you know that we sing his praises. He is one of the most devastating quarterbacks this league has ever seen. And that is not anything short of the praise it sounds like. It is extremely high praise. Problem is, he's not always there on the field. And as he gets older, even though he's only 28, typically those availability rates decline. They don't improve. And that makes it very difficult in terms of decisions moving forward. Am I saying throw Lamar out with the bathwater? Absolutely not. Starting quarterbacks are incredibly valuable. High-level starting quarterbacks are extremely valuable. You do whatever you can to keep them in the building. Derrick Henry isn't getting any younger. He's still effective, but not younger. And Baltimore didn't put him on the field for the last 2 drives when they were trailing yesterday. Like, what,
and
what
that's
is
my
that?
that's my thing with Todd Monken is I do think Todd Monken's a good coach, but there have been a lot of games at this point where he just forgets that they can run the ball. And not only that, but forgets that he has like a first ballot Hall of Fame running back to run the ball with. It is a pattern. I don't know why this consistently happens, and how many post-game press conferences have we seen this coaching staff be like, oh yeah, we wish we had that one back because we have one of the greatest running backs of all time. We didn't use him. But it's like, okay, I'll give you 1, right, maybe 2. We're on like instance number 5 of this happening where they just forget Derrick Henry exists. Like they were up, I think it was up double digits, a couple minutes into the fourth quarter, and Henry didn't touch the ball the rest of the game. And they're like, oh, well, the plan was to start the drive with Keaton Mitchell and then bring in Derrick Henry. And I'm like, you don't know how the drive is going to go when the drive starts. You don't know when you're going to go into up-tempo. You don't know if you're going to take a loss or a sack that's going to rule out the run game. Like, how about you just start with the first ballot Hall of Famer, and if you want to work in Keaton Mitchell because the drive's going like 13 plays, and you want to give Derrick Henry a little break, fine, do that. But at least start with Derrick Henry and see how the drive is going. But starting with Keaton Mitchell and then wanting to bring in Derrick Henry to close, this is a guy that gets like 30 carries and he's fine, even at his age. I think he can handle the entire drive. So they just do this to themselves. You throw in, the defense having these early season collapses over and over and over again that put them into the holes. Harbaugh making kind of egregious game management decisions for years at this point, whether it's punt decisions, field goal decisions, fourth down decisions. Like every single year there's 3 games that were like, I don't know why John did that. And just all of it, again, you can't be ugly and mean, EJ. Like you got to pick a struggle, and they haven't been able to pick a struggle. They just chose all of them at the same time. So I feel like we need a reset here, especially when you got an MVP quarterback and a future first ballot Hall of Fame running back, who, by the way, is still good. They've invested on defense, but they still probably have a lot more churn they have to do because their pass rush is bad. Marlon's cooked. They gave that deal to Mark. I don't know why they gave that much money to an older tight end, but there's just a lot to do here, and I don't trust the current regime to do it, I guess is my point.
They have followed the same tack again for 20 plus years. Actually, if you're going back to Ozzy's way, because Eric's was picked as the successor because he wasn't going to veer off in another direction. He was hand chosen to follow that path. And again, it's worked for them. It's created a great amount of success. But at some point, you need to look at all of these things and say, it's not just one thing. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And again, we talk about it every single week. A little bit of this and a little bit of that will lose you a lot of football games in the NFL. So they need to find a way to a fresh start, and I'm with you. I'm not sure that the current regime is going to do that. So not all new pieces. Again, you don't get rid of Lamar. You got money invested, and starting quarterbacks, good starting quarterbacks, are extremely rare and hard to find. But you need a serious reshuffling. You need a shakeup. It can't be a little bit of new frosting on top of what's there and an expectation that there's going to be deep and sustainable change. And it feels like that's kind of what we need. So it's a weird position of talented and good for a long time, but we need something different to get over the hump.
Obviously, if we're hitting the eject button on this, if we're looking at candidates that come to top of mind, Jesse Minner is the one that Ravens fans have been zeroed in on for multiple years at this point, because there's a lot of Ravens fans that wanted him to be the head coach right now already. And so I imagine he would be at the top of the list. I look at Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator, who is doing an incredible job over there, both with and without Micah Parsons. He's one of the best DCs in the league. Also has head coaching experience, though at the college level, but still has head coaching experience. Honestly, it's going to sound weird, but Mike McCarthy? Like, I look back at what Mike
weird.
did. I know it sounds weird, but just hear me out. If you're looking at what Mike McCarthy had to deal with in Dallas, where that is a very different environment, that is a tough environment for a head coach, considering the power structure, or shall I say power structures at play within that building, and he still rattled off 12-win season, 12-win season, 12-win season. Yes, there was some disappointingly short playoff runs, notably that disaster game against Green Bay. But Mike McCarthy can coach. He won a Super Bowl in Green Bay, and he, in my opinion, kind of evolved himself in Dallas. Like, the offense was modern and also effective. He navigated a, again, not ideal environment that most head coaches would crumble in. And at the end of the day, he walked away from them. They didn't walk away from him. I think he's very good at his job, and he walked away because he kind of saw the writing on the wall and where this thing was going, especially with the Micah.
Yeah, is he on the top shelf?
Yep.
Hey, Bubba, what's up?
Ladies and gentlemen, my dumbass cat.
Dude, which one? Is it Bo?
That's Bo.
Yeah. Bo's the acrobat.
Where was I? Mike McCarthy?
Mike McCarthy. He was telling you that you don't need to do a coaching segment.
Apparently not. I'll just say there's candidates out there. There's not that many candidates. There's not like a Ben Johnson out there where like everybody knows like, oh yeah, that's the one. But there are still good coaching candidates. Oh my God, he's climbing the windowsill. Hold on, let me put him out.
A few moments later.
Through the magic of editing, we're skipping forward a little bit because I had to extricate some animals from the recording space who desperately wanted their dinner. We have one more topic on the docket today, and that's the Bucs defense. This team has, well, yeah, I guess collapsed is a good word for it. I was reticent to use it, but I feel like that's a good descriptor at this point, because they had the inside track to the NFC South. They were probably going to be in pretty good shape for getting a 2 or a 3 seed at one point this season. Obviously injuries played a role here. A whole bunch of guys got banged up. Offensive line got banged up early. Evans, Godwin took a while to come back from injury. Bucky missed a good chunk of the year. Like, I get it, there's been injuries. But to me, the real issue with this team has been a defense that has let them down in key situations over and over and over again. And quite frankly, with a banged up offense, Baker Mayfield could not keep this ship afloat by himself. So he needed a little bit of help, kind of like how the Chargers have been helping out Justin Herbert by having an elite special teams and an elite defense. Baker Mayfield that needed that kind of support. He has not gotten it. This team has been very bad situationally. They've been very bad when it comes to game management. They have lost leads that you just don't have excuses to lose. And at this point, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, if I had to bet. So I think change is coming here in Tampa, and a lot of it is because this is a bad defense with a defensive head coach that probably shouldn't have a bad defense.
Yeah, I reached out to my favorite Tampa Bay fan probably 3 weeks ago and said, do you think that the current regime is going to survive? One word answer. No. I was like, okay, you're more tied into this than I am for sure, but he was already at that point probably 3 weeks ago, and I think a lot of Bucs fans are with him. They've always played a balanced game that required their defense to keep the other team's points low, and that means their offense could score just a few more, and that's been the sort of interplay, the handshake on Tampa Bay forever, and the defense has delivered for a very long time. When that cap is off, they're in trouble. Tampa Bay is 24th worst in scoring defense this year. You can't play that style and be that bad at it. That doesn't work. Last year they were 17th, and 2 years ago they were 5th. They were the 5th best scoring defense in the NFL, so they've fallen from 5th to 24th over the course of 2 seasons. That's a massive drop. And while their offense is good and has improved, they can't overcome it. The scoring offense is 18th this year, which again is playing in that right in the middle balance of we can keep the opponents low, we can win by 3, we have to be good, like you said, situationally, we can't be bad with penalties, we've got to take advantage of every opportunity, and it is a tight way to win football games. It is a sort of low score differential. There's not much margin for error. When your defense drops off that much, unless your offense ascends that much, you can't do it. And last year, the scoring offense was 4th, and it covered up a lot of warts. Before that, it was 18th. Again, when you drop back down to 18th, that's what we talk about with regression and positive regression. 18th 2 years ago, 4th last year. Everybody's like, woohoo, it's fixed. It's going to be great forever. This year, back to 18th, which is regression to the mean, like by definition. So 2024 was the outlier, not the regular. Now the team's regressed on both offense and defense. The style doesn't work. And like you said, they're probably going to lose the division because of that. And because they're in the NFC South, that means they're out of the playoffs.
To me, and this is kind of a watered down version of what we could honestly do like an entire 30-minute segment on. But to me, the true pain point of this defense is predictability. And the reason why it's predictable is because of personnel. I don't think that Todd Bowles suddenly didn't know how to build a defense anymore. It's more so there is a limitation on this personnel that Todd Bowles has not been able to overcome through scheme. So yes, Todd Bowles is part of it, but the root cause is that he doesn't have enough tools in the toolbox to do what have made his defenses good in the past, right? Which is having a changeup, having the ability to play man coverage and not just being relegated to fire zone over and over and over again. It's nice that fire zone has always been his identity, especially like 3-3 fire zones and all the different variations of playing 3 deep 3 under fire zone and attacking people with all these fun blitzes. Like Todd Bowles has been known for that for a long time, but the reason why they worked is because he always had a changeup in being able to call either just straight up man coverage or a man pressure so that you didn't know when those fire zones were coming and you didn't know what kind of coverage was going to be on the back end. Even if you were going to be blocking everything up, you didn't know exactly what coverage it was going to be. But because this team cannot cover running backs and tight ends, that means they can't play man coverage. It's one thing to have corners that can cover, but if you don't have linebackers that can cover, you still can't play man, because if you're playing man coverage, those guys have to cover. Like they can't get helped out in zone coverage, or they can't get helped out in man coverage like they can in zone. And if you're looking at this team, they've allowed the 6th most receptions against backs and tight ends, and they have the 3rd highest yards per attempt against them when teams target backs and tight ends at a whopping 8.7, which is kind of gross. So, if looking at this team's linebacking core, you got the ageless Levante David, who has finally showed his age. He just doesn't have the juice for that, quite frankly, anymore to keep up with, 200-pound backs that run low 4.4. Like, you can't do it anymore. So you can't really put him on somebody out of the backfield. And Servase Dennis also can't cover in man either. So that's just, it's off the board. You can't do it. You can't call one dog. You can't call one rat. You can't call one lurk. Anything that starts with a 1, you can't call. Like, it's just completely off the table. So that has necessitated a very zone-heavy identity, even more zone-heavy than this team typically wants to be, especially on 3rd down. Very high in blitz rate, very high in zone rate, which then leads to, again, 3-3 fire zone being like the bedrock of this defense. But if defenses know it's coming, they can plan for it. At the same time, this team is 12th highest in pressure rate, but they're 20th in sack rate because they just can't get guys on the ground, which is another reason why they blitz so much, is because if they just throw more bodies at the problem, they hope it produces more sacks, but typically hasn't been working out for them. So it's just, to me, it's a personnel issue first and foremost, and you do need to get a new coaching staff in here who can elevate the personnel on this team, because they still are worse than they should be. But ultimately, until they get a linebacker that can cover like young Devontae used to cover, they're going to have this issue. This defense is like ground zero for why linebackers matter. Because for a long time, they had an elite linebacker and the defense was good. Sometimes defense was great. That linebacker, unfortunately, got old and everything's fallen off a cliff. Like, they're bad on third down. They give up a lot of points. It's just bad. So I think we're getting a new head coach here. Obviously, that's going to come with potential changes as far as the type of system that they run. But I think they're going to try to find the actual true heir apparent to Levante. Once upon a time, that was supposed to be Devin White. That didn't work out. Probably add more when it comes to the pass rush department. I think offense ultimately is fine personnel-wise, but they need more pass rush, linebacker, new coaching staff, and then we come back in 2026 and try to go at this thing again. There still is enough here for me to think the Bucs could be a playoff team next season, and a good playoff team. But I think it's become evident that the structure that was in place, the power structure that was in place this year, was not equipped to handle the adversity that was set upon them.
Can I interest you in the wide receiver to linebacker exchange rate?
Why?
Can you how many linebackers can you get for a really good wide receiver? Because Tampa Bay has easily the deepest wide receiver core in the National Football League. And if they could trade one of those guys for a couple of really good pass coverage linebackers, they could be right back in this thing, because they are not short on weapons, but they are short on defensive playmakers in the middle.
What do you say we get out of here, EJ? We're only doing one episode this week for obvious reasons, but ideally we'll get this one out before Christmas.
Yeah, before we get out of here, I do want to take the chance to say for all of us here at Bootleg, to all of you out there, that we are incredibly lucky that we get to do this. And it is because of all of you, because of your love of the work that we put out and all of the ways that you let us know that by liking, subscribing, engaging with us on social media, giving us a hard time when we're wrong. All of those things we see as love. We feel it here. And it is the reason that we get to do this, that we get to make this content and bring you more of it. So we really enjoy it, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So thank you very much for making that possible for all of us. And to all of you, I hope you get to enjoy this season however you want to. I know that is different for everybody. Could be different holidays. Could be some folks love spending time with family. Some folks love spending not time with family. Again, whatever makes you happy. I don't care if it's a beer and some video games, or if it's 25 of your most friendly and non-friendly extended family in the same house having a good time over a celebration of food and whatever else makes y'all happy. I hope you get it, and we will see you right before the new year, but not before Christmas. So happy holidays to all, and to all, a good night.
And remember, even if you don't like your family, you can go watch Chris Oladokun play football. Probably better, not going to lie.
There's always that, yeah.
I also want to thank our executive producers, by the way, over on the Patreon: Fitzy, Connor, Liam, Mike, Jack, Major, Owen, Spencer, Consti. And I can, once again, appreciate all of you, appreciate all of our patrons. And we will see you guys next week-ish, probably.